Hello Internets, a quick video to document one of my cars that I am torn with the prospect of selling, and so I thought I'd make a quick video about it that I can use if I do sell it, but if I don't, I'd still like to document it because it's an awesome car. I just love it. This is an Alfa 164. Sorry, this is a 1991 Alfa 164. It is an Alfa Romeo, and this being 2019, this car is 28 years old. It's getting up there. It's about to hit 100,000 miles, and a lot of Alfas that you see that are getting up around 100,000 miles are getting pretty desperate and sad. This is neither. This car is in very cool shape. I'll walk around it really quick. The key features are that everything works and there is no rust. It has its quirks like any, getting on 30-year-old Alfa Romeo would, but it is fast, it is fun to drive, everything works, it is awesome. I love the retro styling of it. The 164 is front-wheel drive, and normally front-wheel drive is not my thing, but this car just works. It makes no bones about being a sedan that is fast, rather than a sports car trapped in a sedan body, if that makes any sense. It is highly original. As far as I know, nothing major has been done to this car. It did have an engine rebuild relatively early in its life at like 40,000 miles. It experienced some kind of catastrophic engine problem. But that was handled, I believe, under some kind of warranty way back then. This is a 3-owner from new car. The guy I bought it from had maintained it for the last 15 years meticulously. There are service records for just about every oil change. The small garage that services this is... The little garage that serviced it for the previous owner and services it for me is a garage called Nick Falcone Enterprises. Nick has been an Alfista for a long time, and when this car was sold new, they were an Alfa dealership, and they have maintained the cars since they sold them new. They no longer take new customers. The owners have gotten older and have their hands full with cars, but they will service this car, and they will service it for a new owner if that new owner is in the Philadelphia area. So just quickly walking around, the main feature about this exterior is that there is no rust. There are some places where the paint has not aged all that well, but that is made evident by the fact that everywhere else the paint has really aged very well. I didn't wash it or anything for today's little video walkthrough, and here, I'll show you the problem areas. As you can see, in general, the car looks great. It really does look fantastic. It turns heads. I get commentary on it wherever I go. You'll see that the paint on the trunk lid here, just on this side for some reason, has gotten a little bit burnt and oxidized. But that is really the only problem area. Everything else looks really nice. No major scuffs or flaws on any of the panels. There's a little scuff on the bumper there, but it's not too consequential. But I really like this car. It's funny, when I bought it, I've had Alfas before. I've had a Spider, I've had Milanos, which I really like. And I was a little bit reluctant buying a front-wheel drive car. I had looked at 164s back when they were new. I've looked at them multiple times throughout the years, and I've always been put off by the front-wheel drivedness of them. And I've just had a ball with this car. It is fantastic. It's fun to drive. Here, I'll pop the hood and we can take a quick look under there before we take it for a quick spin. Pop the hood. There we go. By the way, just a little tip for any Alfa owners out there, or anyone who's checking out one of these for the first time. This little tab releases the hood, but you do not want to lift up on that tab. That would cause the tab to break off and would be bad. You just really want to pull that out, get enough. I'm trying to do this with one hand for the video. So what's awesome about this car is the really beautiful Alfa 6-cylinder engine. Everything under here, as far as I know, is original. The previous owner had put in the K&N filter. The only thing under here you might say, hey, what is that? It's hard to see in this light, there's a valve handle here that's been added where the coolant flows through the radiator core. The previous owner wanted to make sure in the summer that there was absolutely no heat coming out of the radiator core. So he added that handle to completely shut off the prospect in the summer of having coolant flow through the radiator core. The air conditioning does work. It blows cold. As you'll see in a second, it's a very funky automatic climate control. But, you know, generally looks good under here. And as I said, since it's been in my ownership, I've done routine maintenance, but I haven't had any problems. Really, I've driven it kind of like a daily driver, and it's really just worked for me. So let's take a look at the interior and we can take it for a ride. You know, the problem with aging European cars is always the leather seats. There is a little bit of wear on the seats, on the bolster cushion here and on the side. But this is not split through. It's just worn here. There's a very cool inlaid Alfa logo. The seats are still supportive. The power adjustments still work like they should. There's a little bit of tearing on the gasket on the threshold here. Just needs a new piece of weather stripping right here. I put in new floor mats. And so you'll see there's a little bit of wear on the driver's seat. And let's flip around here. See the passenger seat. Strangely enough, the previous owner, he had a driving position where he rested his right hand, his right forearm there when he drove the car. And so even though this seat is really in pretty pristine condition, it's a little bit, you know, worn on the edge where he rode his arm when he drove the car. And the piping is coming out there. But that's the worst of it. You know, overall, the seats are in really pretty good nick, and the interior is nice. Everything works. There's nothing falling out of anything. All power adjustments pretty much work as they should, with the exception of the rear windows. The controls for the rear windows have never worked, and I've never really had occasion to make them work. Given that it's both, I assume it's a relay or fuse somewhere, but I've never looked into it. The back seats on this car are very cool. They're twin bucket seats in the rear. You get the really cool Alfa logo embedded. It's got the center armrest. And they're bucket seats. This car is one of the few cars I've had where it is just as comfortable to sit in the back as it is to sit in the front. It's very nice. It's got the roll-up rear screens here. There's a place for the first aid kit back here. And I will tell you, I didn't realize this until after I had purchased the car, that I've always just left these screens up. One of them doesn't want to retract. So if you really cared about wanting to have those down, you would need to fix one of them. I've always just left them up, and so it's not been an issue. You can see the seat backs are pretty nice. It's a pretty pleasant place to be back here. Just quickly, before we take it for a ride, I'll pop the trunk as well. We'll go over the instrumentation in a second. But there's this very funky 90s control panel here, and the trunk is right there. So let's give a little tour inside the trunk here. that is a retractable umbrella that I use to keep the car out of the sun. A big suction cup sits on the roof, and there's a motorized rechargeable battery that opens up this big umbrella that keeps the Alfa from getting sun damage. I use that quite a bit. There is a CD changer installed here aftermarket. It's kind of a funny story. All of my cars I've had worked on when I needed radio at a place called Goodman Radio in Haverford, PA. And, you know, they actually just did some work on a couple of my other cars. As it turns out, 15 years ago, when he was picking up my car in the driveway, he said, "I remember your car, I did that." And actually, what's nice about this, most of these cars that you'll see have been modded with kind of really horrible aftermarket stereos. The previous owner was, again, kind of an Alfa enthusiast, and he really wanted to keep the factory radio, which he did. And so he had Goodman Radio install a CD changer that pipes in the back through the FM. So there's a little remote control for it here, and you put the radio on the specific frequency, and when you turn on the CD changer, it blocks out the motorized antenna and pipes in the CD changer. It works pretty well, actually. Original keys. The remote locking was added by a previous owner. It works pretty well, actually. You can lock and unlock the doors, and long pressing on that opens the trunk. Other than that, I don't believe that there's any alarm circuitry active. I've never run into it. I don't use it. And it's never caused me a problem. All right, so let's take a quick look around the interior here. We have our dash, and you can see we are gearing up to hit 100,000 miles, which in an Alfa is pretty spectacular stuff. The interior is pretty nicely put together. Again, the only flaws are this overhead console here. The trim pieces are kind of held on by tape, where this little trim piece had fallen off in the past. Other than that, everything works. The sunroof works, so we'll go over that in a second. It's also missing a boot here, where the handbrake should go. But again, by contrast, everything here works, and so it's unusually for an Alfa this vintage. The things that are not correct are much more are notable in contrast to everything else being correct. So let's fire it up. This car is cold. I haven't. It's the. By the way, this is my favorite hack of all time when you want to have an old car but keep the original stereo. So this cassette, and by the way, I've used every brand of these you can buy. Ion is by far the best one. It's a rechargeable Bluetooth receiver that transmits through the cassette. So by popping it in, you can transmit Bluetooth and use your phone for music, and it works just fine. I actually keep two of them around so that one is always charging when the other one is being used, and it works just fine. All right, so we're sitting here at idle. All the warning lights work as they should. It's got a nice throaty idle. I did change the shift knob at some point, and I really do like this. I believe this is a Momo. Yeah, it's a Momo. Shift knob that works pretty well. So let's, oh, by the way, so this car is notable for its kind of funky, futuristic control panel with all of these square buttons. In the original reviews of the car, people think it's confusing, but people who own it tend to like it. I like it quite a bit. So here you have an integrated set of controls for the electronically damping shocks. By the way, that is no longer active. The previous owner had long since taken out the electronic adjustable shocks. There are just normal Bilstein shocks in there now. Hazards, the fuel door, fog lights, the climate control system. They can go into automatic. You can set the temperature. See if it'll focus on that. Right there, you can set the target temperature for the climate control system. I usually just keep it in auto. Defrost, the external temperature gauge. The glove box opens by hitting here, this button on the dash. Has the original manual package, manuals, etc. Super clean and tidy in there. These door handles are funky. People who are new to the car always look for them for a minute or so. I guess the only, just really trying to be nitpicky in here, the only other flaws are this mirror has clearly been glued in the past, and there's a little bit of residue coming out there. This headliner sags just a tiny bit here, but it's just the piece of trim at the edge. The headliner itself is super tidy, as we'll see. The sunroof works just fine in both directions. The only issue with the sunroof I found is that in order to close it, what you have to do is close it about 3/4 of the way, pull down on, this is going to be hard to do with 2 hands, pull down on this little lever here. Hold on. You're going to pull down on this little flap and then close the sunroof and it seals. It just, whatever interlock is normally there that causes that leading lip to pop down doesn't work. So you have to move it, pull that little lip down, and then it seals just fine. All right, so, you know, that's all the negative stuff. Let's talk about the overwhelmingly positive thing here, which is how this thing runs and drives. And let's go for a little ride, shall we? This car sounds great, it pulls strong, it's just a hoot to drive. And I love the styling on this. It's very 90s, very, you know, period Giugiaro. Just the other day I was parked next to a brand new Giulia, and the owner just would not let me go, was going crazy, wanting to picture their car next to this. And I have some really cool shots of their new Quadrifoglio sitting next to this. Alright, well, I'm trying to video and drive a stick shift with one hand here, which can be a little bit tricky, but the point of this thing is that this is a super fun experience to drive. The handling is tight, everything works, shifts and pulls strong, the clutch feels good, the brakes feel good, you know, it's just it's really pleasurable car to drive. The previous owner was sad to sell it. He got an awesome deal on a Maserati that was just a couple years old, which he managed to buy for 10 grand. He got an impossible price, and he was very sad to part with this. As I said, it comes with books and papers, very thorough service records for the last 15 years. It's been, as I said, maintained in detail by Nick Falcone Enterprises. And I'm not 100% sure I'm going to sell this. My wife keeps asking me to do exactly that, and just because we've had 2 children reach the age of driving, and that has increased the number of cars in our driveway enough to cause a problem. So we now have 4 drivers in our house, and that puts a load on our driveway and our parking situation that really having an extra Alfa sitting around that I don't get to use very much. I travel for my job really pretty frequently, and so I don't get to drive the car as much as it really should be driven. That being said, if I wanted to buy it again, I could not buy it again. I mean, honestly, given what this will sell for, 5 grand, if I was trying to buy a used Alfa for 5 grand and sort it out to the point where, you know, everything worked and I was confident taking it on, you know, any arbitrary length drive. There's no way I could do that for $5 grand. You know, these cars don't come up very frequently. This is the last car that Alfa sold in America before they left for 15 years or so, before they came back just a couple of years ago. And so just to address that for a second, it's not hard to get parts. These cars it was an expensive car here in the States. When Alfa was selling this, they weren't selling the Spider anymore. They were really, they were selling this, and it was an expensive car. It was the equivalent today of a $65,000 car. It was more expensive than a period M5 from BMW. And it really catered to someone who wanted an Italian sports car, but was stuck with the constraints of having a family sedan, sort of the classic problem that the BMW 2002 solved. This solves it in spades. By the way, the leather wrapped steering wheel is very nice. I've taken good care of it. It's sharp and looks very good. Again, I keep the seats in Lexol to protect them and keep them soft and supple, so no cracking occurs more than what's already occurred. By the way, I don't know if you can see this here. It's very frustrating here. This beautiful country road to drive on, they just dug up for the water main. And so there's a huge trench down the center line of this road, which really takes all the Fahrvergnügen, as Volkswagen would say, out of driving this stretch of road. We're about to come up against, and I'll leave the video rolling because it's kind of neat if you've made it this far. It's sort of neat to see. Up on our left is a huge estate, a 400-acre estate that was the last big tract of open land here in the township and really in this county. It was this estate on which the Philadelphia Story was modeled, the movie The Philadelphia Story. Like many of these old estates, no one wanted a 400-acre estate anymore, and they were tempted to tear it up for mass development. And they've kind of settled on a plan that saves most of it, but does open some of it up for new housing. Here, I'll drive in very fast. So you'll see the new custom housing signs. And this was a private road until very recently, as they've started to build in here. They're building like 10 houses here. It's still going to be a great place to live. The 10 houses they're building are all pretty spectacular, and they're going to have a lot of land each. It's not going to have the magnificence of being a 400-acre estate anymore. This house up here is a good example of what they're building. These are all $2–3 million houses in here. These construction guys are gonna give me the stink eye. Hello, just looking. With any luck and a little bit more work, my day job will prosper, and I'll be looking at one of these houses someday. Up here is the original kind of entry guard tower for the estate. The original house is back in there. It's kind of hard to get to, so I won't try. But kind of a neat little piece of land, especially being so close to where we live. Consumables. The car doesn't leak anything. I use always Super 93 fuel because that's what it says inside the fuel door, and that's what the old owner told me to do. I suppose it would work with regular unleaded gas, but I've never tried it. I just have a habit of using Super in all my European cars. There's the original gate to the old estate. It's called Androssen, by the way, if you want to look it up. And actually, one of the things that's neat is that you know, the ring of suburbs where I live is a place where, you know, 30 years ago you would say we lived out in the country, but development has come out far enough that, you know, you're kind of in the ring here where many people will commute into the city. It's definitely considered sort of the near suburbs of Philadelphia now. We're about 12 miles as the crow flies from downtown Philadelphia, which is really nice that you're this rural, that far in. That's all land from that estate, and you'll see they have, the cows are out today. They have a working farm attached to that, and you'll still see cows grazing, and I believe they've managed to preserve the working part of the farm as part of the land development settlement that they've come to. I know the township has bought some of the land and, you know, again, allowed that little bit of development in exchange for keeping a lot of the open land, which is, as you can see, super beautiful on a nice March day like this. And honestly, these are the roads on which this car just shines. It is fun to drive. Again, when you think about the price tag for this, $5,000 this car would sell for if I sold it. You're not going to find anything close to this level of, here, this is one of my favorite stretches of road. Let's hammer it a little bit. Hello, cows. You're not going to find anything that provides this kind of driving dynamics, fun, sophistication, Italian craftsmanship and styling, and yes, Italian quirks sometimes, for this kind of money. So, well, we're about back at the house. I'll come in and then I'll point out a couple of other quick things and then we'll wrap. So thanks for sticking with me so far. I really appreciate all the views I've gotten on the YouTube channel. You know, I started making videos just because, as a practical matter like this, there were some things that I was selling or describing for some friends, and okay, hello internets. Yeah, it's probably not the greatest idea to drive and annotate while I'm making a video, but what the heck. That's why the Lord gave us two hands. So I appreciate all the subscribers and views to the channel. It's been kind of fun. All right, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Lovely stream right there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about the car. You know, it's just solid. It's put together well. If I bought it today, but I guess there's really nothing to do. Tires are relatively new. And as I said, everything works. At some point in the future, you might want to take a, you know, this little bit of seat upholstery cracking bugs me. I happen to know an upholstery shop that's sophisticated enough to replace individual panels on seats. They would do that for me for not a ton of money, and I probably will get around to doing that. But honestly, that is really about it. I thought about maybe repainting that one area on the trunk lid where the paint has oxidized. It's not, this is kind of a nasty left turn here because it's sort of blind. This guy's going left, right, which means I can go. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. No! I'm not gonna make it. Oh, we've been, oh, no, not gonna let me out. All right, now I'm out. Okay. And with that, we are back at home. So if you have any questions about the car, any comments, if you've been an Alfa owner as well, let me know. Leave some comments, and I'd love to hear about your experiences. You know, it took me a while to warm up to this car. It's angular. It doesn't exude a ton of, instant charm. It's a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more of an acquired taste, I would say. It's not the obvious, you know, it's not the obvious attraction of a Porsche 911 or a Ferrari, but it just works really well. All right, so there you have it. Oh, I love the Design by Pininfarina badges that are on the car. Those are original alloys. Yeah. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, tell your disreputable friends, and we'll see you later. Cameron. Cam, what do you think? Should I sell the Alfa or should I keep it? Wallace Wade, what do you think?